Hello everyone, in this video we're going to talk about if ratios, or how to determine whether ratios form a proportion. So we've done previous videos on what a ratio is. Now today we're going to talk about what a proportion is. So it is simply just an equation that is stating that the values of two ratios are equivalent. So an example would be 2/3 is equal to 4/6. So in this video we're going to take two ratios and we're going to try and see if they are proportional. If they form a proportion. So we can do this by multiplying one or both fractions or dividing the top and the bottom, the numerator and the denominator, by the same number in order for us to make the two ratios look exactly the same. Okay, so let's start off with number one. We're going to do four examples here. Number one says 1:2 and 5:10. So to start off, I'm going to write each of these ratios in fraction form. I just think it's easier to see it that way, so that's what we're going to do. So we're going to 1/2 and 5/10. So now my objective here is, can I make 1/2 be equal to 5/10, or could I make 5/10 be equal to 1/2? Really, either way, it doesn't matter as long as you end up with two fractions or two ratios that are exactly the same. So in this case, if I look at 1/2, let's just say I want to take 1/2 and make it be equal to 5/10. Well, I would do 1 times 5 and 2 times 5, and that would give me 5/10, which when we look at those two fractions, they are now the same. They are equal to each other. So we would say yes, for number one, these two ratios form a proportion. All right, number two, 4/6 and 18/24. So let's write those as fractions, 4/6 and 18/24. Now for both of these, let's work with each of them. So let's do 4/6. Let's say we want to divide the top and the bottom by 2. Okay, the reason I'm doing 2, that would be the greatest common factor of both of those numbers. So I know that's going to get me to my most simplified form of this fraction or of this ratio. So 4 divided by 2 would be 2, and this should be a 6 in the denominator. Let me fix that. And 6 divided by 2 would be 3. So we know that 4/6 is equal to 2/3. We actually saw that in our example ratio at the top. So now let's look at 18/24. If I look at those two numbers, 18 and 24, my greatest common factor there would be 6. So let's divide both the top and the bottom by 6. So we have 18 divided by 6 and 24 divided by 6. So that's going to give me 3/4, or 3/4. Now let's look at my two fractions here. Is 2/3 the same as 3/4? Well, no, it is not, right? Those are not equal to each other. So we're going to say no for number two. Those two ratios would not form a proportion. All right, next two examples. Number three, we have 4.5 or 4.5 to 3 and 6 to 9. So I'm going to write 4.5/3 and then 6/9. Okay, so 4.5/3, I have a decimal there. I just want to get rid of that decimal. So what's the easiest number you can multiply by to get rid of that? It would be 2. So I'm going to do 4.5 times 2 over 3 times 2. So that's just going to give me 9/6. And obviously 9/6 is not the same as 6/9, right? Well, if we wanted to, we could reduce a little bit further to help us see it maybe a little bit better. Let's divide 9 by 3 and let's divide 6 by 3. Okay, so that's going to give me 3/2. Now if I look at my other ratio, 6 to 9, if I divide both of these by 3, 6 divided by 3, 9 divided by 3, then we're going to get 2/3 over here. So now, just as we looked at 9/6 and 6/9 and said, those are not the same, if we wanted to reduce it a step further, we could, and we said, hey, 3/2 is not the same as 2/3, so these would be not equal to each other, and we're going to say no, 4.5 to 3 and 6 to 9 do not form a proportion. All right, and our last example, number 4, we have some fractions here. So we have 1/2 to 1/4 and 8 to 4. So this is going to look a little bit weird because we have a complex fraction here, and 8 to 4. So for my fractions here, 1/2 to 1/4, I'm going to multiply by 4 because I want to get rid of the denominator in my fraction that has the greatest denominator, which would be 1/4. And good thing about this one, 2, my denominator of 2 is also a multiple or a factor of 4. So we'll be able to get rid of both fractions here at the same time. So let's do 1/2 times 4 over 1/4 times 4. So that's going to give me 1/2 times 4 would be 2, and 1/4 times 4 would be 1. Now, can I make 2/1 be the same as 8/4? Well, I could if I did 2 times 4 and 1 times 4. So this would be 8 over 4. So now we look at our two fractions, or our two ratios, and we would say they're equal to each other. So we could say yes, 1/2 to 1/4, and 8 to 4 are proportional. They form a proportion. Okay, so that's how we can determine whether ratios form a proportion.